Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And today is our News Watch unit. It's also our All English unit, so it's a special unit for all of us here. And that has made me extremely excited because if we speak all in English, that means we actually talk more because, we can't give the Chinese teacher time to talk. So therefore, we get to talk more. And everybody likes an extra opportunity to talk, don't they?
Most people do. They say they don't, but I think a lot of people like to talk, like to hear themselves talk. I think that's funny, Tom. It reminds me of sometimes when you have to give a speech or a talk, people will say, "Oh, I'm so nervous. Oh, I just don't want to do it. I'm sure I won't use all my time they gave me." But once they start talking, they always go over the time they were given. So it's kind of funny.
Kind of depends. Yeah. But in any case, we've got a couple of news stories in today's program. We've got some flight attendants in Ukraine who are getting new flight uniforms. And then we've got Coldplay, and they're going to be going on tour. And they want it to be a green paradise, kind of a eco-friendly concert tour. And we'll find out what that is all about in just a second. So let's not delay any further. Let's read through the entire contents of our lesson right now, and then we'll be right back.
New flight attendant uniforms put comfort and safety first. Out with the old, in with the new. That appears to be the philosophy behind a recent decision at SkyUp Airlines. After hearing feedback from cabin crew, the privately owned Ukrainian airline has made big changes to the uniforms for its flight attendants. High heels and pencil skirts will be swapped out for running shoes and a loose orange suit with pants. Flight attendants have a demanding job, and they shouldn't have to endure foot pain from high heels on top of everything else. The changes will also improve safety. If circumstances cause the plane to make an urgent landing on water, passengers and crew would have to depart the plane using inflatable equipment, which heels could destroy. The tightness of pencil skirts could also endanger crew by restricting their movement in an emergency water landing. Airlines have a long tradition of using sexy uniforms to boost their business, despite the ways they compromise the crew's basic comfort and safety. This move shows how Ukraine is leaving its harmful traditions behind.
Coldplay's new tour promises a green paradise. Coldplay is on the road again, except this time the road is greener. The band's new tour has an eco-friendly focus, including a distinct 12-point plan to cut the tour's carbon overhead. The plan includes a dance floor that generates electricity, reusable LED wristbands made entirely from compostable plant-derived materials, and an app for spectators to plan their route to and from the show using the lowest possible carbon emissions. Venues will be asked to use best environmental practices, like installing aerated taps and low-flushing toilets to prevent water wastage. Coldplay singer Chris Martin admitted that we still have a long way to go. However, the head of a charity that advises the music industry on being sustainable felt it evident that the band was striving to make a difference. She said that by taking risks and trying things out, Coldplay could help make concrete changes to the whole industry. Now that would be quite an accomplishment.
Okay, guys, let's take a look first at the flight attendant uniforms that are getting changed. It seems like this particular airline is a little slow on changing its policies because most airlines have now changed the flight attendant uniforms. I remember when we were growing up, all the flight attendants were beautiful. They had to be the same height. You couldn't be too short. You couldn't be too tall. And they didn't really have men back then either. And you had to be quite attractive. You couldn't weigh too much. You had to wear makeup. They had so many restrictions. But things changed, I would say, a good 20, 30 years ago. But high heels, wow. It would be really difficult to work in high heels on a plane as far as I'm concerned. We're going to find out how this particular private airline has changed things up in Ukraine, a country in Eastern Europe.
Right, so we've got flight attendants. They attend to you. They take care of you when you are on a flight. I guess I technically used to be a gas station attendant. When I was in high school, people would come in and want to buy gasoline, so I would put gasoline in their tanks. I was a gas station attendant, but this is the title for people who do this on flights. They are flight attendants. They used to be called stewardesses and stewards. I guess you could probably still say that, but technically they're flight attendants.
You should call them flight attendants because they get upset if you call them stewardesses.
Yeah, that's an old term. Yeah, exactly. But out with the old and in with the new, that appears to be the philosophy behind a recent decision at SkyUp Airlines. We do have this phrase when we talk about changing things, getting rid of old things and starting to use new ones. Out with the old and in with the new. Maybe about, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, I had my old cell phone and I decided to get a smartphone. So out with the old and in with the new. So now everybody has smartphones and you don't see the old cell phones around anymore.
You'll often hear this phrase too at the change of the new year. Out with the old, in with the new. Whatever you're doing to change your life up, you can use that phrase, out with the old, in with the new. So it appears to be the philosophy behind this decision. Philosophy is just what you believe about a certain thing. We talk about philosophy when we talk about the meaning of life. What are we here for? What's our purpose? Companies have philosophies or mission statements that they'll talk about, what they believe to be the most important principles behind their particular product or service. Well, this is a philosophy that seems to be behind this decision to give these flight attendants new uniforms that really do put comfort and safety first rather than just whether they look attractive or sexy.
Right, they want to keep up with the times, they want to be current, and they don't want to be old-fashioned. So after hearing feedback from cabin crew, the privately owned Ukrainian airline has made big changes to the uniforms for its flight attendants. So they heard feedback from their cabin crew. The feedback, of course, is information that people tell you after they've tried something out and they want to offer their comments. Remember, feedback is non-countable. Although statements are countable, but in this particular case, we're talking about the information, so it's feedback, so don't add an S to that. So they probably asked their flight attendants, what do you think about the uniforms? Are they comfortable? Are they practical? And the flight attendants responded. They gave them feedback. And, of course, this is the cabin crew, the people who work on the crew. And this also is a privately owned airline in Ukraine. So that means it's not run by the government. It's actually private.
I also wanted to mention something else about feedback. I teach a lot of business folks, and sometimes I see them write or say, I'm going to feedback you. I want to feedback them. No. This is only a noun, guys, and as Tom said, it's not countable. So we'll say, I want to give you some feedback, or my boss gave me some feedback. So typically we use the word give when we use this. So yeah, after hearing feedback, another word for feedback would be critiques, criticisms. Criticism can be countable and non-count both. But they heard some feedback, and that usually happens at a company. If you don't like something or you really do like something, you'll often tell your supervisors or your boss, and the word gets back. Well, the word got back to those who owned this private airline, and they decided to make some big changes. Now, previously, their uniforms were kind of tough to work in, I would say. High heels, High heels are tough. I can wear high heels for about 2 hours and then my feet are done. But high heels were part of their uniform and also pencil skirts. Ladies out there, pencil skirts are those skirts that are very narrow. So it's very hard to spread your legs very wide. So say they had to step up and put something into one of those overhead bins, it would be difficult. Also, you just feel more exposed in a skirt. It's probably easier to wear pants if you have to move around a lot. So high heels and pencil skirts will be swapped out for running shoes and a loose orange suit with pants. Now, to swap with somebody or swap things or swap out just means you exchange one thing for another. We have something in my state that I grew up called a swap meet, where people will bring things from their homes and you'll just freely exchange with other people. It's like exchanging your junk for somebody else's junk that you want. But you can swap things out or swap out things with somebody.
You could also say they will be exchanged for running shoes and loose orange suits. So they're not going to be wearing their original pencil skirts and their high heels. Now they're going to be wearing running shoes and then a loose orange suit. I suppose that is the jacket on top, and then they'll have pants as well. This kind of sounds to me like a tracksuit or a warm-up suit or something like that, which would be very comfortable for them indeed. And then it goes on to say flight attendants have a demanding job and they shouldn't have to endure foot pain from high heels on top of everything else. So indeed, it is a demanding job. They do have to do all sorts of stuff. They have to ensure the safety of passengers. They have to serve them food and all that stuff. So yes, it's demanding. They have a lot of stuff to do. So indeed, they should not have to put up with foot pain. They should not have to endure foot pain. To endure just means to be able to withstand something because it is uncomfortable or it causes pain. So indeed, if you want to run a marathon, you have to endure a lot.
Yeah, another word for this would be suffer. If you suffer through something, they don't have to suffer from foot pain any longer from these high heels on top of everything else. Some of those flights, at least the international flights that many of us take if we want to go somewhere, they're quite long. So to be in those high heel shoes for that many hours, it would be tough. So they don't have to endure or suffer through foot pain for any future flights. That's nice. So moving on to the second paragraph, it says, the changes will also improve safety. Of course, they always tell you safety is our number one priority.
Safety first.
Yeah, when you get on a plane. So if circumstances cause the plane to make an urgent landing on water, that's my greatest fear. I don't want to die in the ocean on a plane. Passengers and crew have to depart the plane using inflatable equipment. You've seen those kind of rafts that blow up and you can slide down from the plane. Those are inflatable. Well, if you have sharp high heels on, it could puncture or make a hole in that rubber that it's made out of. You would all be in trouble. So don't wear high heels if you get into this situation. They actually tell passengers to take your high heels off and run. Just run. So we want to make sure the flight crew is just as safe as passengers. So now they'll be wearing those running shoes, which would help them a lot.
Indeed. So, yeah, high heels are both uncomfortable and dangerous in those kinds of situations. And I'm kind of surprised to hear that they're actually still doing that. I thought they got rid of high heels for flight attendants many years ago.
I mentioned this earlier, Tom.
Yeah, but I guess...
Yeah, they've changed it on other airlines.
Yeah, I was going to say, some people may still be using those in backward countries. I'm not saying Ukraine is backward.
No, but these are private airlines. They can have their own rules and policies.
Makes sense, indeed. So they're doing away with those high-heeled shoes and they get to wear comfortable clothing on the flights. And again, that will improve safety. And then the high heels won't be puncturing the inflatable equipment. If something's inflatable, that means you can put air into it, like your tires on your car. Those are inflatable. Or sometimes if you go camping, you might use an inflatable mattress. You fill it up with air when you get to your campsite.
Yeah, balloons are inflatable. You just blow air into them. So some of these things, the tightness of pencil skirts and these high heels, they could endanger crew. To endanger someone is to put them in a dangerous or risky position or difficult position where they might come to some harm or be hurt. So they could endanger the crew because they restrict movement. And when you're in an emergency, you want to move as quickly and as calmly as possible. So getting rid of those high heels and those tight skirts is a good plan. So moving on, airlines have a long tradition of using sexy uniforms to boost their business. I can tell you why. Long ago, when airlines first started doing business and taking passengers on them, there were really only men flying on the planes because women stayed at home and raised their children.
Right.
So the whole point was to be sexy for the men traveling on the planes, and some of those, and they were called stewardesses back then, also hoped to maybe meet a handsome man on a flight and get married. So they wanted to be as attractive as possible. So they did used to have very sexy uniforms back in the day.
Yes, to attract those wealthy passengers in first class, they're not going to be giving the time of day to low-life people like me who ride in economy class. At least back in the day, they wouldn't be interested. But indeed, they used to wear sexy uniforms to boost their business, and they would compromise the crew's basic comfort and safety as a result of that. So to compromise means you make a sacrifice, you make a change. Compromising usually means that people have to meet in the middle, so to speak. You want to have this food at this restaurant, I want that, so we'll compromise by going someplace else.
Typically, it does mean that. In this position, though, it just means you're weakening your principles. So we'll often use compromise to talk about lowering your standards. You don't want to lower your standards in safety, though, because that might bring someone harm or even take someone's life. So to compromise the basic comfort and safety, or to weaken it, to make it less safe, would be a bad thing for the crew. So we hope that these changes will make some of the crew members a lot happier. They might work with a lot more, peace inside themselves, knowing that at least the clothes they're wearing won't hurt them if they need to escape or take care of an emergency landing. Now, we're going to take a break now, guys, but we don't have our Chinese teacher, so hold on. Tom and I are going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about Coldplay, which is, I think, some listeners' favorite band. Welcome back, guys. It's our News Watch, and it's our all-English unit. So we're trying to remain in English. There's no Chinese teacher today. But we're moving on to our next news item here. The title of this, or as we say, the headline in News Talk, it says, Coldplay's new tour promises a green paradise. I think the name of their tour is Paradise, but they're trying to be more environmentally friendly on this particular tour. We're going to talk about some of the changes they're making.
Now, Coldplay is on the road again. They're having a tour, except this time the road is greener. It's going to be a green concert tour. The band's new tour has an eco-friendly focus, including a distinct 12-point plan to cut the tour's carbon overhead. So here we've got the word distinct. That means unique and identifiable. It's very special. So, of course, it's very unique because not a lot of bands do this, and it's a 12-point plan. They've got 12 items in their list of things they want to accomplish to make their tour more eco-friendly or nice to the planet.
Yeah, so they've got a 12-point plan. Typically, we use this sort of language when we're talking about a project, especially in business, where we've got 12 items that we want to really take on or confront. So they've got 12 different ways they plan on cutting the tour's carbon overhead or that carbon footprint we hear about from those who are in the green industry. The plan includes a dance floor that generates electricity. So they won't have to actually be using or consuming electricity on this dance floor. It's actually going to generate or produce electricity itself, which sounds really cool, actually.
Indeed. So, of course, this is their plan. And let's talk about some of these items here. The plan includes a dance floor that generates electricity. So I suppose as people are dancing on the dance floor, their gravity maybe pushes it down and drives generators or something like that. They're also using reusable LED wristbands made entirely from compostable plant-derived materials. Now, first of all, let's talk about these LED wristbands, light-emitting diode wristbands. That's something you wear around your wrist. I guess they use those to get into the concert these days, and they're lit up with LED lights, but they're not made from plastic that's going to be thrown away. They're actually made from compostable plant-derived materials. Now, compost is stuff you put in the ground that is biodegradable, and you do this when you rake your grass or something like that, or you cut your lawn, you have extra leaves and branches, then you kind of break it down and then bury it in the ground, and that becomes compost so that it can replenish the soil. It can make the soil fertile again. So this material that the wristbands are being made from is compostable. It can actually return to the ecosystem.
I know my sister has a garden in her backyard, and they'll often take the peels of oranges or the peelings off the apples and then put them in the garden in with the soil to nourish those plants they're growing. So they use that a lot as compost. Compost is the noun form of this. Now, if something's derived from something else, just means that's where it comes from. So plant-derived, meaning this material the compost, they get the compost from, is coming from plants. Now, here's another thing they have an app for spectators. Those who have tickets to the concerts will then have access to the app, and they want them to plan their route to and from the show using the lowest possible carbon emissions. So I guess there are several ways you can get to that particular venue. It's probably a big stadium. Coldplay has a lot of fans who like to go to their concerts, so they need a big place to perform in. Now, emissions, when you see this word emissions, you know that something's coming from something else. Because if you emit something, that's a verb form. It means there's something that's coming out. Light can be emitted from a light source. Of course, heat can be emitted from a heater. Here we're talking about carbon emissions. Some of that carbon dioxide that comes out that we're trying to reduce in our Earth. So that's where this idea that planning a route would help lower possible carbon emissions. I'm sure if you took a route that had fewer cars, where you had to be in a long line of traffic, would probably cut down on emissions.
Right, or it'll probably tell you ways to get there by bus or by metro or public transportation.
Take the subway.
Or maybe even to ride your bicycle there or walk there or take a boat or something, who knows. So yes, this app will help you with that. And venues will be asked to use best environmental practices like installing aerated taps and low flushing toilets to prevent water wastage. So a venue, of course, is a place where something happens. The venue for the concert will be at this particular stadium, for example, and the venues will be asked to use some environmental practices. Hey, can you guys do this when we come to your stadium to give this concert? Maybe you can install aerated taps. Now, aerated means you're adding air to something, and if you open the tap or open the faucet, water comes out. But if you add air to that, then less water is coming out. And let's face it, most people leave the tap running when they wash their hands or something like that, and that's a waste of water. You should shut it off. Or maybe if they have sensors or something like that, or spring-activated taps, that might help. And then, of course, here in Taiwan, we know what low flushing toilets are. If you pee, then you press the smaller button, and if you poo, you press the bigger button.
Right. Some people will sometimes aerate their lawns. I know I've seen some people go out and make these holes in their grass to help improve the soil and the growth of the grass that they planted. To aerate just means to add that air. Yeah, sometimes the low-flushing toilets don't work very well, though, and you have to actually flush it twice. So I think that kind of defeats the purpose entirely, but that's what they're trying to do is just save water, which is always good, especially if you live on an island like Taiwan. We want to save some water. Now, moving on to the final paragraph, it says, Coldplay's singer, Chris Martin, he's the leader of the band, he admitted that we still have a long way to go. Of course we do, but you can always start and make these small steps, and that always helps people. And it helps people remember that, our Earth is, the only place we have to live, so we want to take care of it. So it says, however, the head of a charity that advises the music industry on being sustainable felt it evident that the band was striving to make a difference. So he says, yeah, we're doing this, but there's so much more we should be doing. But the head of the charity that actually has a business where they just give advice to these big music bands, the music industry, just at large, they said, they're doing a good job. They're making a difference. And as long as you try, you're doing better than people who aren't trying at all.
Yep, they advise the music industry. They tell bands what they can do to save energy or to conserve water and stuff like that. Maybe play softer songs in the concert so people don't run around and jump up and down and get all sweaty and need to drink a lot of water
of course,
and use the bathroom or something like that.
That's what they want to do, though, Tom.
True. That's just kind of a ridiculous idea I just threw out there. But there might be some other examples out there. And this is what they do when they give them advice or they advise them. And she said, this again is the head of this charity, she said that by taking risks and trying things out, Coldplay could help make concrete changes to the whole industry. So I guess she's praising them for trying things out. Hey, good on you guys for taking risks there. If you do these things, some people may say, hey, you guys are making this kind of inconvenient for us. Maybe we won't go to your concerts anymore, So that's taking a risk if you're a band. You don't want to upset your fans who go to your concerts and buy tickets to your shows and stuff like that. So they're taking a risk here. They're sticking their necks out and trying things out.
I think that Coldplay's fans are probably very similar to Coldplay band members in how they think about life. Here you could use that word philosophy, if it's your life philosophy to be environmentally friendly and very green, you're probably going to fit in really well with Coldplay and Coldplay fans. So here we've got this lady really praising them, like you said, Tom, for making a difference, trying to do things better to save the planet. And also, if you use that word concrete changes, it's really solid. They're not just changes that we're kind of imagining in our minds. They're real changes that make a difference. And that would be quite an accomplishment if it helped change the whole industry. An accomplishment is something that you succeed in doing. Usually we use this word to talk about people who have worked very hard on their goals and they've achieved something because they worked very hard. It wasn't just something that magically happened or they were born with. If you have an accomplishment, you need to celebrate yourself because you probably worked very hard to achieve that particular accomplishment.
Indeed, and of course we might see some changes here in Taiwan with how bands put on their concerts. Like May Day might do some things to help make their concerts more user-friendly or more environmentally friendly. So yeah, maybe you all can discuss those possibilities amongst yourselves, but that does bring us to the end of our explanation for today. So there you have it. New flight attendant uniforms and an eco-friendly tour for Coldplay. That brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you for joining us, and please join us again next time. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.